Token Arthur was always curious about new things. One day, while flying over the jungle, he saw a group of animals exchanging goods and services using colorful stones. So he contacted Fintech CTOs from fantastic companies all around the world and collaborated with them to learn all about finance. Inspired, Arthur asked INSART CEO Vasyl to help start a podcast to share their knowledge with the world. This is what you are watching right now, Fintech CTO Podcast. Enjoy.
Hello, fintech builders and leaders. So this is our next episode of Fintech CTO Podcast, and I'm Vasyl from INSART. And here we discuss and explore great stories about great fintech companies, products, and people. And today we have a great guest, Abhishek Kumar from Xoxoday.
Abhishek Kumar is a serial entrepreneur and has created products in healthcare, supply chain, and finance domains. He has worked with multiple brands like Manhattan Associates, Magma, Net Positive in the past, but soon jumped to entrepreneurship. He's founded companies like eveningflavors.com, Remeses Technologies, and Xoxoday, and has been actively mentoring startups with product ideology. He specializes in exploring new product ideas and mixing the business need with the latest technology to target specific markets.
So Abhishek, hello, how are you doing?
Hey, thank you. I'm good. Thank you very much for inviting me for the podcast. I think it's a pleasure for me to share my experience, my learning with the team, with the viewers, and whoever can benefit with my knowledge. Thank you for inviting me again.
Of course. So Before we start, please also subscribe to our channel and like this video, and to everyone who are watching us, so you can write your questions below and your comments below. And also, I would like to introduce Abhishek with 3 core facts today. So the first fact is that he is a co-founder of Xoxoday, which is a global SaaS fintech company known for its rewards, engagement, and loyalty infrastructure for business. And they develop engagement solutions to grow relationships with customers, with employees, and also with sales teams. And last year, they got $30 million of investment. So the second fact is that Abhishek is actually a mentor and investor himself in different startups. And the third fact is that he is also a sports person and plays different sports like cricket, football, chess, and badminton. So, Abhishek, the very first question to you will be, why did you decide to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think that's a question that every entrepreneur that steps into the shoes, gets asked often, right? So let me break down. All of us, right? All the entrepreneurs that get into entrepreneurship, they have a willingness to do something. They most often faced with some problems while they are in day-to-day routine life, or they have a willingness to create something to much bigger aspect which they can feel much happy about, right? For example, if you ask me what have I achieved by doing this, I would say purely happiness, right? Basically, I do it for myself. I do it for I create products. I love when people use it. I love when the traction is there, when the product is solving some kind of problem in the world, right? And that's why a lot of people talk about product market fit, right? To simply answer your query, it was just a quest for happiness that pushed me to get into entrepreneurship.
So you graduated from the university in 2007, as I know, and just after like 1 year or so, you founded your first company. So why not actually working for some big company, but founding the company yourself?
Very good question. I think first, I graduated from one of the most premier institutes in India. It's called IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. And the kind of culture that we get, the kind of surrounding environment that we get in our college, right, is phenomenal, right? You get people from all breeds, all cultures, and all nations, right? So this gives you a feeling that you are in a place where you can grow your wings. You can think beyond just your routine job thought process and all, right? So while I was at my college, I could see a lot of my friends, my seniors, my mentors, right? They were into a lot of doing into a lot of their own stuffs. They would work into a lot of you know startups, small startups, or some startups which were actually hosted by IIT Bombay itself, right? So that gave me a really good push, and at the same time I realized that working in company or MNCs, right, I would not be able to fulfill my dream, or you would say I would say that I would not be able to freely work on something that I can take pride in, right? For example, something that I've created for the world and something people are using today. I mean, because of that, today I'm here, right? As simple as it is. So right after that, I had a dream from my childhood that I wanted to do something out of my own. I wanted to create some company. I didn't know at that point of time what I'm going to do. And hence, if you look at my path, right, it has been a mix of a lot of experiment, lot of companies that I've created. So so this is my third startup, by the way. I've done a couple of more startups before this, where in one of them I exited in a profitable fashion, but in one of the startups I failed really. But I mean, that was really a good experience for me. So while I just worked for 1 year, that 1 year was good enough for me to push to startup, because while I was working in the company MNC, I would not like to name the company, but while I was working in that, I realized, and the relation became much more stronger as months went by, right? And it pushed me really harder to get into what I love doing, right? What I wanted to do, and it was creating a company, fulfilling my wish over there, right? I was young, and then I didn't have a lot of commitment by then, and then I thought that this is the chance, this is the opportunity, since I don't have a lot of burden on me to take care of other stuff, right? I could really experiment with what I want to do in my life and what I want to do in my career. And hence I jumped into it right away. And though the idea was very innovative at that point of time, and believe me, when I'm talking about 2008, when I jumped into startup, the ecosystem, especially in India, was not well developed as it is today, right? So finding VCs, finding investors, finding co-founder itself is very difficult. So the moment we found few like-minded people, together jumped into the bandwagon and started our journey. That's how we got into it.
It looks like that the university environment really influenced your entrepreneurial future,
Yes,
and but actually you worked for some bigger companies, and my
yes.
question here is, what lessons learned you have done working with big companies before actually jumping into entrepreneurship?
Right. So there are a couple of good points and a couple of bad points, right? So good points of working in a company is you get to know the processes which you might use them at your company yourself later on, right? In a much better fashion, in a much evolved fashion. I mean, you don't really want to copy the same culture, because a lot of people come out of that and want to create something out of it, right? But you definitely want to learn the processes, want to learn the compliances that are put in the system, and you would want to put it at your startup someday, definitely when you go to that level, right? So that these were the pros, right? And that's what I learned. But beyond that, there are a lot of cons, right? The first thing, everybody and everyone would say that you're working for someone else, you're not working for yourself. That's the I mean, simplest of reason that anyone would give you, right? But beyond that, I would also say that it became a mundane task for me. I was a simply a engineer at the company, right? At the MNC, and my task was to fix bugs and to make certain improvements in the all existing products. So I could only see certain part of the product. While I was very fascinated about what the product at the end of it could do, I could see that if I have to get to the top of the ladder, it would probably would take 10 years or 12 years for me to reach that ladder, right? So I decided that why don't we just jump up, right, and see what happens at the top, right? Simple. So it was my inquisitivity that pushed me to get into this startup at that point of time. And at the same time, I was so eager to know like what happens at the top, what how markets behave with respect to product, with respect to what is launched in the market, right? How the product market is achieved, which probably if I would have stayed at an MNC, right, it would have taken 10 to 15 years for me to learn and understand. I would definitely have done that, but would have taken its own sweet time. I was relentless I was. I didn't have a lot of patience. So I thought, let's try it out. Let's do mistakes. I mean, it's okay to do mistakes when you're young, right?
Yes, for sure. So, and I see that many people who jump into entrepreneurship, they have this kind of experience with bigger companies, and you
Yes,
can see inefficiencies in these big companies and then use that as an input for your product to build your own product and to improve this. Is it
definitely.
something that you have done as well?
Partly yes and partly no. So the feeling that you're saying, right, I can echo the same feeling, because most probably what happens when you're working on certain product, right, you realize that there's a gap that is still there while product is addressing some problem statement, right, but there's still some large gaps that are unaddressed, right. So while you gain that experience in the company, you also want to see that how you could fix those gaps, because by staying in the company, probably company's focus is not to look into that gap, right. So probably you are so enthused with the idea that, okay, let's solve that gap, let's solve that problem, and then you take a product only to fix that gap, right. In my case, it happened with my second startup. In the first startup, it was when I was into a supply chain management company. I started on the food tech side, right, where I become something like food discovery platform that I built initially, right. But the idea was understanding. The idea was solving a problem statement at that point of time where I was facing in the city. For example, if I had to go out, if to eat out, I was a bachelor, I didn't have a cook at home, so I often had to eat out, right. I often had to look for deals to go out and check, because of course the funds were limited with us, right. And that was a simple problem statement in my day-to-day life, and that problem statement echoed with large number of people, right. So there are two things happen, right. Either you encounter the problem statement at your workplace, or you encounter the problem into your day-to-day life, right. And both of these factors are equally good enough for you to jump into the startup and try to solve the problem, right. Large number of people actually get motivated with the personal problems that you face with, right. For example, most of the medical startup that I have seen, I have also mentored, come up with a solution, come up with a problem statement saying that I faced a problem for my mother in my remote hometown, or my father in a remote hometown, and then I thought of creating this kind of solution, right. But there are some people, like especially in SaaS space, right, they look into niche markets, they look into the gaps of certain products that are solving some problem statement, and they try to fix it. That both are equally good a factor to push you to get into that.
So, by the way, with the first startup, you had several roles. So, the one was about business development, and the other was about technology. So, what was the primary role for you?
As an entrepreneur, when you start a company, right, so you have to wear all the hats, right. You cannot, I mean, whether you know or not, you have to do it all, right. So I by nature I'm a techie, I'm a technology guy. But then just if you just create a product, right, like that, right, then you don't know whether you're going to your product is going to get used in the market or not, right. The most important thing to do is to understand market, talk to people, right, understand customers for whom you want to create the product, whether they need the product or not, right. So it's very easy for all of us, and the mistakes that most of the people do is, first they think about a problem and they create a product out of it, right. Just thinking about the problem, getting a product out of it doesn't solve that market problem statement, right. There are a lot of things that are involved into this: how the product is getting adopted into the market, how are users going to react to your product, right, if you have done a user survey, customer survey or not, right. So for these things you need to get into a business side of it, right. You cannot simply stay just on technology and think that, okay, some fine day it will happen automatically. That doesn't happen that way, right. If you have to solve a problem, you need to get into that thing. You need to get your hands dirty with respect to problem. You have to live in that problem statement yourself, so that you can realize what is the solution that you're working for. That's what I did actually on that point of time. And I actually roamed around on the street for looking for all the restaurants, figuring out and talking to people that what are the problems that they were facing, how we could solve that. And then we actually designed our first product in terms of restaurant discovery platform that I started. It was back in 2008, right. So it's very important for all of us first to understand the market, understand the gap, and also understand how is the product going to solve that gap. This is not simply going to happen only by coding. So, if you ask me, yes, I'm a techie, but then I had to jump into a lot of other roles. Beyond that, I think we are just talking about on the market survey. When you start your company, right, there are a lot many things. For example, getting people on board, giving them the kind of trust that, okay, if you come with me, you're going to get that world class experience of doing something of your own. You're going to get that autonomy. You're going to get that transparency. Everything, all those things, blah blah. I think those things, I think, become equally important. You also become HR. So I wore a out of HR as well, right? So business guy, HR guy, tech guy, then
Yeah.
operations guy, right? I had to do certain deliveries at certain point of time, right? So I've done it all because I had to do it. I mean, I was the one who wanted to solve the problem, and I had to get into it. So I solved it.
Okay, so you also invest in different companies aside of Xoxoday. And
Yes.
why actually you do this?
Great question. I think the ecosystem is well developed right now and understand the pain of people who are coming up. So there are two things that I look into when I am doing this and why I do it. So I think there are a lot of people who need support from tier two, tier three city, and also in tier one city, the access to funds is not that easy. You need to get lot of you need to get a lot of qualification to get into that. There are people who are not from very good colleges. Like, I'm lucky to be from IT Bombay, but not all the people are from IT Bombay, but they do have really good ideas, and they do have the willingness to execute those ideas, right? So if I find a right team, if I find someone who is very interested and who is passionate about his idea, is solving that problem statement, have shown certain kind of certain degree of execution, I put my money on the person, not on the idea at per se, right? So I like the person the way, because it gives me a feeling that somehow I get a feeling that this person is representing me 10 years back or 15 years back, right? So I look for myself in that idea. That is one. Second is obviously it's a risky investment, so you of course look at how do you optimize your risk, and also how do you look you also try to get into an exit, or think about an exit of the investment, right? This is also one of the ways of and I will not shy away from the practical facts, right? That is one of the not the easiest but the riskiest way to build the profit, but build your wealth. But if you're not taking risk, if you're not taking that kind of risk, then I think your wealth development will happen with slow speed, right? So something that I take certain part of my money that I have, I try to invest in the startups, and I leave it to luck and also try to mentor them, saying that someday it will come back. And fortunately, my most of my startups that I have invested in have started giving me good returns. Some of them has closed, but that's okay. I mean, it's part and parcel of the game, right? But when I look at it, I always look at the person solving the problem, and also what is the problem that he's solving, right? The problem statement itself is has if I'm very interested in the problem statement, that is where I invest in.
So do you like to be an active investor or not?
I am actually an active investor. I help them a lot in setting up their tech stack, tech this thing, and also grooming their business thought processes, and helping them to grow to certain level, right? Beyond that, I think there are a lot of other people whom I also get them connected with, right? And they help them. So I'm actually very active with them. I work with most of the startups once in a week, or half day in a week, like that, right? That's how I do.
So I actually read that you are actively mentoring the startups with product ideology. So what
Yes.
is product ideology?
So this is one of my favorite topics. Whenever somebody comes with an idea, right, and tells me that I have this idea and I want to create a product out of this, right? Then my ideology is, like I said, right, for me it is very important is that the person first thinks of the problem and then thinks of the product, right? So product analogy is very simple for me. I try to take out that product idea from his mind completely off, right? And I ask them to completely focus on the market first, completely focus on the consumer, the customers, right? Understand the problem statement, whether you have a problem well defined or not, whether do you understand the equation of customer versus problem versus market or not. And then you also need to understand what are the kind of products that are solving that similar kind of problem statement. how far have they gone. One of the important metric that I ask them is very simple question is has there been a successful exit in that domain, or has there been a unicorn that has been built in that domain, right? If not, then are you planning to become one of the unicorn by launching this product? Then how, right? So these are certain questions, the realities that I bring forth to the people in terms of product development, and this is what I call as product ideology, right?
So actually, the most successful company you created is Xoxoday. And
Yes.
speaking about product ideology, so can you please tell us how you elaborated the idea for Xoxoday?
Great. Right. So we have taken multiple pivots, by the way, to reach to this level. But when we started with a gifting solution. I mean, very simple gifting solution into the market, and we launched a website for the end consumer. We were not a B2B customer, a B2B product initially. We were a B2C product, right? And we wanted to do gifting and all, right? But sooner we realized that gifting is a very small problem statement, right? Plus, there are a lot of logistic related issues. There are a lot of other issues where other people are solving in a very different way, not a very productized fashion. And to productize that space in India, this is going to take another 5 to 6 years, and we were not ready to wait for that. But instead, we figured out a solution to entire thing and said that, okay, why don't we go completely digital and remove all the physical or manual approach into this entire equation? And hence we launched a lot of instead of products, we started getting into digital products, and specifically the vouchers of the brands, right? And also certain gift cards that we wanted to launch, right? And from there our actual journey started, where a lot of companies started picking vouchers from our website. And we saw that there was a great traction that's coming from especially B2B side, right? And that is where it started giving us a good feeling on the B2B side than the consumer side, because the volume, the market size, and the requirement on that side, the gap on that side was huge, right? So because if you look at the market that we have built, the market we have developed initially when we started building in India, it was all physical gifting. It was like they will give some watches, they will gift some nuts and all the stuff, right? And slowly and gradually we started moving them away from those physical gifts to getting into digital gifts, digital currencies, because these were very very well accepted tokens by by the end consumers, which are like employees of these companies, salespeople of these companies, or channel partners of these companies, right? So there are multiple stories that we encountered, as and when we went ahead on our journey, right? For example, I give you one simple example for creating our latest product, which is called Compass. Compass is sales commissions and incentive calculation product, basically. So it's an incentive infrastructure product. So while we are doing virtual distribution, a lot of people, a lot of companies would give us their Excel sheet saying that, hey, these are the points, these are the channel partners IDs and all this thing. Why don't you calculate certain data KPI based on this thing and distribute the voucher of this quantity and this denomination to these people, automatically upload the sheet and it gets distributed, right? Now, this was okay to understand that, okay, a lot of people want to do, but I actually wanted to get into the depth of the problem statement, right? And when I got into the depth of the problem statement, right, the problem statement of the people was simple. It was the transparency. For example, if I'm a sales guy, right, and if my variable, if my salary component has 40% of variable incentives, right, and 60% fixed cost, my 40%, how are they getting calculated? How, what am I getting for that? And when am I getting that, right? These are important questions that is getting into the minds of the sales guys. And because of that, because there's less, because there were lesser transparencies, lesser known facts about how the data is calculated, right? You have seen a lot of churn in the sales side of it, right? Now people keep jumping from one company to another company, and that's and bad mouthing about the company, saying that, hey, they ate up my incentives, they didn't give me that incentives, while they don't understand that there's certain criteria to calculate incentives and all, which they don't know. And that's because that's purely internal, the finance team works on that, right? And hence we pick that problem statement and say that, okay, why don't we bring this kind of transparency across the system, where people would be able to see, or the sales guys would be able to see, how are their incentives calculated and when and what amount are they going to get. And we could also do a AI on based of that, saying that what is the projected incentive that you can get and how you can modify your incentives, maybe improve the chances of getting better incentive, right? So this became a super hit problem statement, and I think we made a super product on that, which is called Compass today.
So the company is growing right now, and I
Yes.
I imagine that your responsibilities evolved during the time. So what are your current responsibilities in Xoxoday?
Right. So currently, I think the way I work and the way the teams that we have configured, right, and I believe in my team very much, right. So all of the teams that we have, I have created the products, and then I have created a BU on top of that, which is business unit on top of that, right. And each of the business unit works like pods, which means that they have their own PNL, they have their own CTOs, you can say, right. So I behave as a group CTO, and then there are multiple CTOs for the multiple business units, right. So the way I work on is, once I have taken this product to certain level, and where it is only required to grow it up in terms of scalability, in terms of volume management, in terms of launching into multiple countries, geographies, or multiple languages, right. Then I put up a strong team across it, and then I start working on the things that are required to make it scalable, and that level, right. And then I work on the other ideas that are required to strengthen the overall ecosystem of our company, right. So that's how I work. So grow, and then again start from 0 to 10, and then 10 to 100. So there are two
So
levels.
how big is your current team under yourself?
So we have around 160 people under me, under different buckets, under different BUs, right? And these are all engineers, product managers, and designers, the product side of it, right?
So you mentioned that you have several products, and that's why you have several CTO in charge of each product. So how many people and who are they who reports directly to yourself?
So there are three products basically, right? So when we created during the stage of our lifetime in the company, right? We created one product called Plum, which is mostly into customer gifting, loyalty side of it. Then we created another product called Impulse, which is into employee engagement, rewards, and recognition. And the third product that I just talked about, Compass, which was into sales incentive gamification, right? So these three products in themselves are large products, and they have three CTOs with them, right? And all of them report to me in terms of CTO and the product managers, right? And the sales team reports to the sales head, the CEO of the in an entire organization. So that's how we are posted, but entire product and technology is what I'm supposed to look into, and this is what I do.
So you mentioned that you wanted to be like on the top when you jumped into the entrepreneurship. So my question here: to whom do you report? So who actually set your goals?
Yeah, I think it's the market, is the customer that we report to, right? So we are actually pretty much, see, with being at the top has its own perils, right? You are responsible a lot of the things that goes ahead in the company. Anything that goes wrong, you are responsible for that. Anything that customer faces as an issue, you are responsible for that. So it's easy to say that I want to reach on the top, but when you reach on the top, you realize when you look down and when you look beyond, right, how difficult it is to manage the expectations, to manage the entire expectations, KPIs, and all those stuff, right? It is difficult, right? So like I said, I report to the customers, but then investment happened last year, that, and then there are investors with whom we work. We do have a very cordial relationship with the investors. There's nothing wrong in that, and I think we together set up the goals for ourselves, right? We only set up the goals for ourselves, but based on the market scenario, market condition, and what do we want to achieve, right? That is the entire setup that we have arranged for.
So I think that it's very important to select team members that will work
Yes.
directly with you. So what's your experience with that? How to be successful in that?
Awesome. So that's a great question. That's a question that is very closer to my heart. I'll tell you why. Because the first employee of the company is still working with me, and he's a techie, right? He has become a CTO. So they are almost, we are a 10-year-old company. We just celebrated our 10 years, and we gave at least 10 to 15 awards for people who have stayed with us for more than 10 years, almost 10 years, right? So I'm lucky in that way that being able to retain people since the beginning, and they are continuing with us, still they are with us, right? Now the key to that is very simple. Since I have also been an HR person. I have looked the looked at the ecosystem very closely. What I understand is, if we give the ownership, right, in a very controlled fashion, in a way that it does not impact business to a different level, and also it motivates the team, right, then the team feels that zeal to keep working with you, right. If I do try to do a lot of micromanagement, micromanagement is a favorite word in a lot of startups, you would know, right. If I try to do a lot of micromanagement to a certain extent is required, but I think it should only be limited to the immediate reportee, but not to entire hierarchy, correct. So that is one thing that we don't do it, and we try to keep a layer between how we want to manage people, and then try to give the ownership and the kind of transparency about our business to entire organization all the time, right. So we have monthly review that we share the numbers with the entire team. We also share our plan with all the people, all the key stakeholders. We also let them drive a lot of things, and it's okay. I mean, we are okay if they commit certain mistakes, that's fine. I think we but we also give them time to correct it, right. So correct those mistakes, and then we continue like that. So that's how we work. I think the key to success is how motivated your team members are, and by motivated I mean how engaged they are with you, right. The engagement comes with day to day touch, giving them the kind of freedom that they want to perform in, right. Not bringing that kind of corporate culture that we have experienced, that we have gone through, right. Not putting them to a stringent processes which cannot be bent, which cannot be really looked into all the time, right. So those things that we really try to avoid. But certain things, certain compliances, certain processes are required to have it. But then there also we try to have an inclusive approach than just to put it on them from a in a top down view, right. We try to have an inclusive approach from the entire team members.
So one of the values that resonates with with myself that you have in your company is actually be master of your work.
Yes.
And actually that means ownership is not given, it's always taken. So you can only take the ownership. And as I understand, you also by that you mean that ownership equals responsibility equals accountability. So how actually to motivate people to take ownership?
Yeah, so I think it's very easy, right. I mean, if you just let them do mistakes, if you just let them drive things, right, if you put them in a driver position, right, they start taking the ownership themselves, right. While see, the people are like river, right. I mean, they keep flowing in directions, right. My job is to give them a direction, simple. If you channelize the river by putting right tools, you get energy out of it, right. That's what we do. So we let them flow, but then we also try to guide them, try to help them how they can maximize their output and how they can become better, right. There are multiple ways to do that, right. For example, while you're giving them freedom, you're also giving them tools to upskill themselves, right. For example, both in business understanding, tech understanding, there are a lot of training and learning processes that they go through, right. They also get an opportunity to directly interact with customers, look into the customer problems, go and meet customers, and a lot of things that we do, right. And also they look into the P&L of the business, right. The most important factor is the monetary factor. If we are trying to hide the monetary factor, monetary details from the individuals, right, then the transparency takes a hit back, right. We need to give them the freedom, we need to trust them, right. First and foremost important thing is that the person has to feel that the leader trusts him, simple. So if you don't trust him, if there's a feeling in me that I don't trust this guy, one thing that we do is we take the guy out of the company rather than we just carry it like a burden, right. That is simple. So we give that kind of trust to the people, we give them the kind of tools that they need, we can give them the kind of transparency that they need. And I think the ownership is ownership comes by default by doing all these activities.
So why actually employers should take ownership without having an ownership and like the stakes in the company? Because sometimes this is this kind of misunderstanding happening, like in this term of ownership. So what do you think?
So there are two kind of people, right? One is, of course, people think that, if I do for company, what is company going to give me back, right? That is a
Mhm.
fair feeling to have, right, by the people. The second feeling is, kind of feeling of respect, right? So when you give the kind of responsibility, the kind of ownership to the person, you're also giving the kind of respect, right? So respect plus monetary benefits, and you are trying to show that though you don't have the stakes in the company, but you do have stakes indirectly. Means, if you are able to get bonus, or if you're able to get the cut from the profit, right, then it makes sense, right? Then it's a equally good motivation from a monetary angle also, and that's what we do. We try to keep certain percentage of the profit that we make, or the maybe not the profit, but we try to keep it the target, saying that we reach the target, you take next percent of that target as your bonus. So that's a equally good motivation for the people. And of course, the most important thing being the respect, right? I mean, by giving that kind of ownership, by trusting them, we're giving them the kind of respect that they deserve, that they want, right? And that is most important thing for any employee if you look into it.
So Xoxoday products actually focused on providing different kind of incentives to employees. So how does Xoxoday platform actually help to take this ownership? So
Yeah, good question. So, like I said, right? I mean, we promote the word called intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation both together, right? So when I say intrinsic motivation, I'm talking about the satisfaction level. For example, let's say pat on the back, let's say a thank you note, good work note, things like those, right? A well wish on you on the bigger platform, right? So if between you and me, if you have a manager and employer relationship, right, and if I do certain good, you'll come and tell me, hey, you have done good work, right? But what if you tell it publicly and announce it publicly, and I feel elated, right? I'll feel good about it, saying that, hey, my manager has appreciated me in front of all the people, in front of all the company. And that's what we try to bring forth, right? We say that, okay, here's the platform where you can announce your appreciations, where you can announce everything, you can celebrate events, you can distribute points, you can do peer-to-peer rewarding, you can do just a well wish card to be sent, right? And everyone sees what manager thinks about the employee, or what employee thinks about the manager, right? So it's not just the one way, it's a two way. I can also, I being an employee, you being a manager, I can also gift you something, so as a token of appreciation, because you help me somewhere, or you motivate me to do certain things, right? So as a product, our entire focus is to bring out that intrinsic plus extrinsic motivation together, so that the employee feels motivated, right? Extrinsic motivation, we mean the financial benefit that he could get out of this entire exercise that he's doing, right? So that's the motive of our product. So if you look at all our products, right, they are focused on specific use cases. For example, Plum is focused on the customers of the businesses that we work with. Impulse is focused on the internal employees, who, like, the developers, the marketing guys, on the operations guys, right, for whom the rewarding, the recognition, it becomes important for them. The third product Compass is into sales and channel partners. These are the people who are very important for the ecosystem, because they bring you the actual money, they bring you the bucks, right, that you need, right? And hence it's very important to motivate them, to keep the things transparent with them, right? So entire ecosystem is built on trust. Entire product that we have, product suite that we have created, right, they they echo the word called trust, transparency, and recognition. So these are the things we work with.
so you can actually have this culture of recognition in the company and
Yes.
all this motivational system in place. But
Yes.
eventually, you need some scope of work to be done by
Yes.
by the team, by each employee. So how do you check yourself that actually the work is done?
Yeah, good question. I think there are a lot of performance management tools that are there that we also integrate with, right? And basically, both in terms of performance management tools, learning tools that we integrate with, we say that, for example, a learning tool, if there's some course that is assigned to you, right, and by default it's assume that you have done your course when you say you have done it, right? But what if we track your this thing, and we incentivize you to complete your course on time, which means that, let's say you've done 50% of your course, right, you get X point or X voucher, right? If you do 100% of this thing, you get 3X vouchers, right? which means you will be targeting to get 3x amount of voucher, right, and not just settling with x amount of voucher, right. So that's how we do it, right. We track everything with data, right. It's not everything that we do on the platform is data oriented. It's not simply based on our good feel or like that, right. Everything has metric. You have to put the metric, and you have to then distribute the rewards based on that. Even the incentives that we do a data pipeline integration with all the transaction based data systems, and that's how we pull the data, calculate it, share with them. Everything is data oriented
So Xoxoday works with more than 5,000 clients, as I know, across like
across board.
100 countries, like
Yes.
80 million users. And Xoxoday was also recognized as employee recognition landscape by Forrester this
Yes.
quarter, in quarter one 2023. So
Yes.
what actually does this mean for the company?
Oh, I think that's a great feat that we have achieved for ourselves, because there is something that gives us the kind of pride, that kind of feeling that yes, we have achieved what we wanted to do, right? Because our entire company is based on that thing, that we wanted to create a product which would create kind of recognition, kind of culture, promote the kind of culture that people want, right? And to have fared on that scale by one of the premier people like Foresters. I think that's a great feat that we have achieved. I think it means a lot for us, because because Forrester has done that, and there are a lot of other articles also that have launched what we do, right? I think the customers trust enforces with us, right? We get a better opportunity with people who are still not working with us, right? Because they now understand that we are doing something good. We are doing something that where we have achieved, where world is recognizing our efforts, right? Publications like Foresters and all, it's not easy to get a recognition from them, and it's not easy to get an article out from them, right. It's only when you do good work, it's only when you do something that is worth mentioning, they do it, right. So it's a great
Yes,
feeling.
yes. So also, Xoxoday, is it about return on investment or making people happy?
Oh, it has always been making people happy. So if you look at even our logo and the word, right, Zozo, XOXO, it's a slang for hugs and kisses, right? Which means that with love, right? So every day, celebrate your every day with love. That's what we try to promote in this thing, right? So of course, because we are happy people, because we are doing good thing, I think the ROI, return on investment, will happen definitely. That we are not worried on that. We are only worried about doing good work, making people happy out there.
So aside of the recognition by Forrester, I know that Great Place to Work also recognizes
Definitely.
Xoxoday, for its people first culture. And my question is, do you use Impulse yourself to achieve that results?
We use all the three products. So our motive has been, before we launch it to for the customers, we have to use it internally. So we use Compass for our sales incentives, we use Impulse for entire workforce, and we use Plum for our customers as well. So we use all the products ourselves first, I mean, then we distribute it outside. So for that matter, any product, any feature that we release, right, there's a beta release that is done internally, that we use it for a month, and post that 1 month of uses, we launch it for the entire world.
So as I see, building the great culture is one of the strong areas of your expertise. And so, do you think the culture is a mix of people that you hired to the company, or that the culture can be actually built and developed, and people can evolve and people can evolve towards this culture?
So I think it is well-known fact that people follow their leaders, right? And if the leaders don't echo the kind of culture you want to build in, right, then the culture will never build, right? Culture definitely builds with the people that you hire, the people that you work with, right? So for us, it has always been a good practice to have the leaders with the similar kind of mindset, who can promote the kind of culture that we want entire to the entire organization, right? So what we try to do is, we try to only tie up with the people who blend in with in our culture, right? We do not want to, in fact, we have given exit to people who have tried to create issues in the past. We have tried to be different from our culture, tried to disturb the culture, and we have given the honorary exit. And there also we have not, really, taken harsh steps, but we have given honorary exit, but we have given exit. But we always try to maintain the cultural aspect of the company, because that is very important. All the benefits that you see, even in today's tough time, I think, with speaking about benefits, we give a lot of benefits to our employees. We are a small team in terms of, I mean, as compared to, companies or revenues of our size, we are even fairly small at that time. But we do a lot of benefits for our employees, and we try to help them as and when required. So I think from a culture perspective, we don't try to experiment. We always think that people are important, and people are the one who are going to take us to next level.
So I think that co-founders are very important to establish really strong culture. And you have 4 co-founders, and you have several partners. So how did you actually split the areas of responsibility and ownership between co-founders?
Well, actually, in our case, we got lucky because all the co-founders that we have come with distinctive use cases and also skill sets. For example, I'm the guy who is the techie out of all the 4 people, right? The Manoj, while the other co-founder Manoj is into product development and marketing, right? So he looks into product and marketing together. Then Sumit is mostly in finance plus sales, and Kushal is into sales plus operations, right? So if you look at it, there are certain overlapping things, but then there are core skills that we all have that we work together on that, right? So yeah, I mean, we got fortunate, and we have identified our areas skills where we are very strong. We feel that we are strong. And we respect each other. First and foremost thing between the co-founders is respect towards each other, right? That, okay, I mean, that guy is better in certain aspect, but I am better in different aspect, right? Things like those. So if you have a mutual respect, and we do have a mutual respect on ourselves, and we acknowledge each other's strength on that side.
So what are the decisions that you do all together?
So I look into HR and tech both. So most importantly, on tech side, I think it's very important to be ahead in the market in terms of in the game, or basically the architecture, the current innovations, the tech cost, tech debts, right, that we're talking about, right, the budgets that we talk about. So all these things I think we have to control. That is where I take the decision into, and also to keep the customers happy. That is our responsibility. The tech responsibility is to make sure that products don't fail, the products keep working, and we keep doing a customer survey. We call it a CSAT score that we measure it on, customer satisfaction score that we call it. And on the HR side, I think it's equally important to look into the kind of people, the kind of culture that I want to incorporate inside the company. That is where we look into.
But what exact decisions do you make all together? Like not yourself as responsible for technology, but all 4 co-founders all together?
Yeah, so I think we all of us together, we decide about the let's say the kind of revenue that we want to do, the kind of investment that we want to do in terms of people, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of tech, in terms of sales expansion, right? On the strategic side of it, we all 4 of us take decision together. We decide it on a quarterly basis. We sync up, and so in fact we sync up every month, every fortnightly, and we try to evaluate where have we reached and how we have done, right? And then we reprioritize things based on that. But all the strategic decisions that we do it together. We be it on the market expansion, be it on the product expansion, be it on the tech investments, the people investment, the kind of people we want to hire, we do it jointly.
So
While the
am I right?
diversity, yeah.
So am I right that you don't have a chief executive officer in the company?
No, not really. I think we have it, but internally what we do is, we together, I mean, CEO is for the company, right? I mean, for us, I think all of us, we report to the CEO, work in that fashion. But when it comes to taking a decision, I think it is taken jointly, and then the decision is passed on by the CEO, single-handedly. So in the boardroom,
Would you move faster if you would have a chief executive officer in charge? What do you think?
Yes, I think it is very important because I think I feel the role of the CEO is to look into the market, look into the investment side of it, to talk to work with the customers, to work in the to give a to look at the 30,000 fit summary of P&L, the strength of the company, the weakness of the company. It becomes very important to look from an outsider point of view and understand if you are doing something wrong, we have to pull it back. We have to get into that. There's one person that is required to keep looking into that aspect all the time, so that we don't deviate from a path from whatever we have planned to do for the entire year, right? We are on the path, right? While all of us have got our distinct tasks focused toward making everything together, but I think the CEO's position becomes very important to drive this, because everything gets stitched together by the CEO.
All right. So another value that you have is be thorough in making this through. So, and what gets measured get managed.
Yes.
My question is it about setting KPIs, metrics, goals?
Right. So, like I said, right. I mean, when I told that we try to give the ownership to the people, right? I also said that there's a certain level of P&L that they know about it, right? Which means that certain part of the salary is associated, at least the leadership level and the VP and above people, right, is associated with the kind of performance that their BUs do, or overall as a company we do, right? So we set our KPIs, everything oriented towards the revenue, everything linked to the revenue that we earn, right? So KPI is something that is we have refined over the period of time, but we have refined for the good, for the market that is there, the scenario that we have looked into. It's very important for entire people, entire organization to have an inclusive approach, which means that they have to be the part of the system, right, rather than the just being a guy who doesn't know or doesn't care about what the organization is doing. You have to know what the organization is doing, because if you don't know, then you're not involved, then you don't own things, right? So yes, I mean,
So is this system implemented for all the employees, like linking a part of their salary to some metric and some KPI?
Yes. So we have a compulsory 10% variable system, and out of that 10%, certain percentage is very small percentage for the smaller people is linked to this thing, but a larger percentage is linked for the leaders like VP and above people, right? So yes, it is linked to their the company performance.
So, and what are the most important KPIs that you have in your company?
Oh, so I think it depends upon team to team, right? For example, tech will have a different KPI, the product will have different KPI, the sales will have different KPI, right? And HR will have different KPI based on their roles performance, right? Because you don't expect a person who is lowest in the pyramid in terms of tech, right? A very junior resource, you don't expect him to go and do the sales and be a part of this thing, or even get that pressure on him, right? Because his job is to develop the code that he thinks is good for the company, right? The things that will help him grow in the ladder, also think that business will take a growth from that, right? So his job is primarily to codes, and hence the responsibilities are driven based on the skills, based on the teams that they are into. But as and when you come up the ladder, right, certain percentage, what how you are contributing towards the revenue, it becomes very clear. That is what we try to map with the revenue, and say that certain activities that you are doing, right, how is it impacting the revenue, and that is where we linked it towards the revenue, right? So yes, I mean, certain part is linked to revenue, but then for tech team it's different, for product team it's different, for sales team it's different. Sales would be highly number driven, saying that how many what is the percentage, what is the geographies they've launched, right? How many customers sales qualified lead to converted from marketing qualified to sales qualified to opportunity to customers, right? There are various funnel that we look into. In tech we look into the timeline of the release of the product, the bugs that we encounter, the stability of the product, the customer satisfaction score, the bugs review, the bugs created, right? And how fast you are able to come up with the product. So they are two different things, but then everything is interlinked and attached together towards the performance of the company.
I like the idea that you allow people to innovate, but also you measure the results which is very important to be able,
It is very important.
to
Yeah.
manage the efficiency of the company.
Yes, because I think if you, it's good to give the platform for innovation, but if we don't measure it, then we don't know where we are going, right? And we get lost in terms of doing certain things, certain experiment that will just take investment and there's no ROI on that, right? If you have to survive in the market, it's very important to keep measuring your efforts, keep getting output on all the experiments that we are doing, all the new initiatives that we are taking, and equally important to maintain the kind of relationship that we have had in the past with the existing employees and existing customers, right?
So last year you have got 30 millions of outside investment from Apis partners, and what did you decide to get? So why did you decide to get this outside investment, and what are you spending this investment for?
Yeah, so I think predominantly, if you look into it, until the investment came, right, we were mostly India focused, and we were trying to get into other geographies. We needed a lot of investment for that. So the idea was to grow. That is why we aim for the investment and grow at a very fast speed. So the idea is, at some point of time, we would be preparing ourselves for the IPO. We're trying to launch the IPO. To reach to that level, I think we have to achieve the kind of profitability that we're thinking, right? The kind of become EBITDA positive continuously for certain years, and then look into that. That's one. And second, of course, while you work in a very bootstrap fashion, right? You also want to give back to your employees, like they have been working with you, they have been there with you for long, right? You want to give it back to them with a good feeling, because trust me, if we are there. So there was a kind of peer pressure also, right? Everyone in last year were getting funded, right? There was another approach. People, in fact, started looking at multiple companies, saying that if you're not funded, then you are not a good company, right? So that was another, became a metric for the market to evaluate you, right? While the bubble busted sooner, and luckily we sustained because of our roots that we have followed. We have been bootstrapped. The money that we invested, that got invested in us, large part of it is still, say, we still are running through our own revenues, right? So the idea is only to use it when we need it for the expansion, for the growth, in newer geography, when we have to hire and expand the team, right?
So I talked to many co-founders, and some of them, they say, okay, so we want to grow organically. It's too risky to take outside investment, so it's less risky when not to take the investment and not to be related to some investors. So do you think that they're losing, and they're losing their chances to grow?
Right. So there are, I think, good points and bad points into that. So good point is, of course, you're confident about your business model and you think that you can grow faster without the external funding. Then I think you don't have a reason to take a funding, right? There are multiple companies who don't take it and still they grow at a very fast rate. But if you think that you have a good product market fit, but the money is stopping your growth because you're not able to get into or do certain experiments because of the lack of the fund, I think it makes sense to raise, because there's no point if you stay longer with your idea put on plate and put on table. Somebody else will execute it someday, right? So if you don't execute it, somebody else will do it. So you have to stay ahead. You have to be faster in the entire ecosystem. You cannot just sit idle and wait for your opportunity to come. You have to make the opportunity to come to you. For that, you need the external funds. Simple, right? If you are making enough in your revenue, by the revenue in your company, it makes sense for you to not raise, but keep going, keep investing back the profits that you're making into the company. But if you're not making enough, but you have a strong product that is getting a traction, you think you need better person to sell that and to make revenue out of it, you definitely need to raise the investment. Otherwise, you are definitely missing on the opportunity. Somebody else will make most out of it.
So, as I understand, you've got this investment also to grow outside of India
India.
market.
Yes.
And typically, when you grow and when you scale your company, there could be some challenges. So, for example, it's starting to be more hard and to keep the culture in place. Okay, because you're adding more and more people in your company. So do you have that kind of challenge at your company, and how you overcome this to keep the similar, efficient, and strong corporate culture when you are growing?
Yeah, I think it's a very important question when you ask that. It is challenging when when your team spreads out, when you have multiple team in multiple time zones, especially, right? Then you definitely have to work overtime, or maybe you need to expand your team internally to support the entire team, right? But one thing is for sure, I think the kind of culture, the kind of benefits that we want to give, we have to make it localized, right? We cannot have it one blanket for everyone, right? For example, the kind of benefits that work in India doesn't work in US, doesn't work in Europe, doesn't work in Indonesia, places like that, right? So we what we try to do is we try to work with the people that are there in the local, and try to get what is best out for that market, right? So we tie up with a lot of external consultants in that market, and try to make it beneficial for the entire ecosystem, right? So we use blend of tools, for example, HRMS, payroll management, or even benefit management, all those things. And then we also use consultant to validate those, compliances on the compliance side and on the benefit side. So yes, I mean it increases our investment definitely, but then this is all towards the quest of getting better ROI on that, right?
So you mentioned that you are actually an HR guy. So why is it so?
I'll tell you one funny thing about that, right? Because I'm a techie, I happen to spend most of my time in the office, right? And when I'm at the office, I think I'm the only eligible person who's getting a chance to talk to maximum number of people at the organization, right? I mean, be it online, be it offline, be it in person, right? So it becomes, I mean, for me, it is easier to understand people because I keep interacting with them a lot often, right? Than a guy who is traveling more often on the business guy, right? And hence, by default, it came to me, right? I'm not a by default HR person. I'm a person. I'm a techie. I'm a group CTO, so I look mostly into technology. But then because most of the time I'm at the headquarter, most of the time I'm talking to people, most of the time I understand people better. I handle HR. HR is all about people management, right? I mean, how well you understand your people and how well you can define policies, define process for your people. So I think I'm good at that. I've become good at that by practicing that. Not just that I was already good at that, but yes, by spending time with the team, by spending time with the people, I think I've become better.
So how many people in the company you know directly yourself, aside of the people who reports to
I
yourself?
think 70 to 80% of the people I would know directly, in the entire company. Not all of them, because some of them I would have talked to them on over phone or over video call, but then not personally, and I don't get that kind of screen time with all of them. But most of the time, what happens is we conduct a lot of event at our headquarters, and we invite all the people. So we get to meet a lot of people. We celebrate together, we work together, we dance together. So I mean, I have a good cordial relationship with all the people. So I think 80% of the people, 80 to 80 and 90% of the people I know directly, and then there would be 10% who I think would still be untouched, or maybe would take some time for me to reach out to them directly.
Yeah, so as a leader, you need to keep these relationships with your
Yes,
employees, your team members, and to show the example for everyone how to do this actually. And
yes.
by the way, how your current workday looks like, and how this evolved during the lockdown and pandemic period. So when we had to move 100% remotely.
Right. So good part about our business is, our business itself is, based on, gamification, and based on, incentive, rewards, recognition ecosystem, right? So while we missed being together, while we missed getting into, looking at each other or meeting each other physically or, directly, we also adapted to the situation very beautifully. There was certain percentage of performance that got hit when the COVID lockdown had gone, because in that time there were transition period where people were thinking come to office or not come to office, things like those, right? But then during COVID, I think, since people were locked down, I think because of the lockdown lockdown that happened, people are mostly focused on working because they didn't have any other thing to do, right? So they were there, they only had to do was to work. So it became an opportunity for us, and for also companies like us, right? Because there was a feeling of both personal and official time mixing, right? So there was hardly any boundary between your personal time and official time. Basically, the meeting would happen any point of time, and you would actually attend to any all the meetings at any point of time, because you didn't have any other excuses. I mean, if you look at it, you are confined to your room. You're doing, I mean, most of the time, if you're working, if you're not working, you're doing nothing, then it's better to work, right? And that's how that was the kind of feeling. I'm just trying to echo that kind of feeling that people felt and told me, right? But then when the lockdown was removed, I think the people become really little lazy. They wanted to stay back. They wanted to enjoy the freedom that they have acquired, the new release freedom that they have acquired. So we molded into a hybrid work culture where saying that okay, we'll work 2 days or 3 days out of office, and then rest of the day you can work from home, things like that. We're still continuing with that kind of culture.
So you mentor people yourself, you mentor other startups. And my question is, do you have the mentor for yourself?
Yeah, I have a lot of people whom I talk to, and a lot of mentors that I work with, because I do a lot of mistakes. I do a lot of issue. Deal with a lot of issues in day to day life. I need someone to help me out with the issues, how to deal with it, right? Sometimes things that come to you, you're not prepared for that, right? And to react to that and to work with that, I think you really need a lot of people to help you out with that, right? So yeah, I do have a lot of people, a lot of mentors that I work with, that I discuss things with, and gain insights from. I think the best mentor or the best teacher, as all of us know, is time, right? I mean, with respect to time, it keeps us onto our toes. But I think beyond that, in terms of people, I work with a lot of people. It's very good, very important thing to open yourself and not keep your things confined to yourself, because if you keep it confined to yourself, you'll never get the solution out of it.
So I personally believe that having a great mentor is very important for your strategic development as a leader.
Yes.
And so how to find a great mentor?
I think I mean, there is no right or wrong way to define a great mentor. I think a mentor could be a good mentor to you, but can be a bad mentor to me. Could be a good mentor to me and bad mentor to you, right? It's all about the equation that you rapport that you build with the mentor, right? Simple. If the rapport is good, the equation is good, your things will work out. If it is not good, it will not work out, right? So in my opinion, I mean, people who have got good experience, have got honest experience in the industry, are definitely good mentors. But then you also have to look for people who are like-minded, who actually want to solve a problem, right? So that's how, and you will know it. I mean, when you do a couple of discussions with them, you will sit with them for 2 3 rounds, right? You know that whether this guy is, because at our level we understand, right? Who can help us, who cannot, right? Things like those. So it's I mean, I definitely, when I choose people, when I work with them, I spend a lot of time before I choose to work with them. I mean, make them my mentor. But other than that, I think it's very difficult to really find out who is a good or a bad mentor, right? It's all very very personalized. It's all very very relative, I would say.
So in conclusion, as I mentioned before, there are some co-founders that are afraid of growing, and
Yeah.
you have done a great job of growing and scaling your company and going outside of India to the international markets. So what advice will you give to everyone who are still hesitating to start this journey in exponential growth of the company?
Yeah. So if you look closely, and if you examine a lot of startups that have done this in the past, right? A lot of people have actually failed and have died down by, because they have spent a lot in doing expansion and they have failed, right? So in our case, I think of course the funding is one that help us to grow. But more than funding, I think the people who got associated with us doing funding as an advisor, as mentors, right? All of them helped us with the right market approach and right market scenario, right? So my suggestion to the people would be, first of all, do not hesitate to make mistakes. It's okay. I mean, as long as you can, calculate your mistake, you know that you're not crossing your boundary and you're not killing yourself, right? It's okay to do mistakes, but at the same time it is very important to rebound on your mistake, to validate your ideology, validate your thought process with the people who have already done it, right? It's not wise and it's not advisable to commit the same mistake which others have done and you are also walking the same path. It's better to talk to people, 10 different people, maybe 8 people who have failed and 2 people who have succeeded, right? You will know what not to do, at least to just to kill yourself, right? And then from the 2 people you will find one way to develop your strategy in building, growing that company, right? It's very important to tie up in the market in where you want to grow and have a mentor or advisor from that market, right? To understand how you can grow better and how you can. I think my suggestion also would be, if you have to go, if you have to give certain ESOPs, because I understand that you might not be able to give a lot of money to them. It's good to give ESOPs to the person, and ESOPs could be based on, I mean, the calculation could be based on multiple factors. For example, if you do good into that area, if you've done some revenue into that area, certain ESOPs have certain values that can be given to that, and it's good. You should be honest about that, but you can get started with that. And a lot of people are looking for that approach, and a lot of people are out there to help you out with in that respect.
Abhishek, so thank you very much for sharing all your experience and all your knowledge today. And I specifically liked several ideas that you expressed. So the one about the product ideology, and that you need to look for problems that you can solve for people or for companies. So the other is that customer is your boss, is your employee actually. And the other one is great about that people stay with you for more than 10 years, and like first comers, they still work with you. I think this fact is really great. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for taking out time and talking to me. And I'm actually blessed with the kind of people that are around me, and and I mean, the people are the strength for me.
So, and for everyone who are watching us, if you are still looking for all-in-one solution for as an employee engagement platform, so give it a try for Xoxoday. And I want to thank you to everyone who are watching us and who watched this episode. And please write in the comments below, what do you think about what we have discussed today, and also what topics you would like to discuss in our next episodes. And also like this video, subscribe to our INSART FinTech channel. And this was Fintech CTO Podcast. And I'm Vasyl from INSART, and Abhishek from Xoxoday. So thank you, and stay healthy and stay tuned. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Vasyl. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Still watching us and have not subscribed yet? Let's fix this. Also, don't forget to like this video and take a look at the other episodes we have. See ya!